Hello guys, it's Josh,
Phil!
and we're back again with some more Let's Talk About the Bad Batch, this time with episode 3, slightly delayed compared to normal. That's definitely not my fault, at all. But here we are, we're finally getting around to talking about it, and, oh yeah, heads up, spoilers for episode 3 of the Bad Batch and potentially other Star Wars material. There's been the spoiler warning, but we need to say it, so there we go. But yeah, Phil, how did you think it was? Because I thought it was pretty good.
I think it was probably one of the better episodes we've had. Like, it's probably the case nothing is ever going to really beat the first episode. That's very unlikely because it was 70 minutes long. But
Yeah.
of the shorter episodes we've had so far, this was quality. This was a really good episode. It had a good combination of character growth and showing a really interesting narrative point.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before recording, how, like, I think my only main gripe for this entire episode is just wishing that it was longer.
Mm.
And in the fact that they had these really cool things going on, and I just wanted to see a little bit more of them each time. Like, maybe every episode could be 70 minutes.
Yeah. So which aspect do you want to dive into first? Bad Batch or Crosshairs?
Let's stick with the Bad Batch, because I feel like there's more to talk about on the Crosshair end
Yeah.
of things. So the Bad Batch end of things. I did my previous worries of Wrecker in previous episodes of him potentially getting quite annoying have somewhat not necessarily been addressed, but I did find him a lot more amusing in this. Maybe it's because he was barely in it or only in it for smaller doses, but I did find his comedy did make me chuckle a good few times, and he got a little bit of character development in terms of, again, with Omega, I guess, being the center point of that.
Yes.
But he learned to sort of be a bit more considerate and soften up a little.
Exactly, and I really like the angle that they go with that. He definitely has those sort of crazy uncle vibes to him, and they're leaning into that, and I think it's a really good, it's a good way to go with him. I mean, it's what we've talked about previously with extremes, angry guy, but he's got a softer side, and they're showing that quite well, even though it's a little bit, but we're seeing the infancy of what we hope is going to be a bigger arc for him.
Definitely. I think before, wasn't it Hunter who was talking about how she doesn't even have a bed, obviously being a bit more of the fathery guy. I feel like definitely prior to that conversation, the whole giving her a bedroom wouldn't have even crossed Wrecker's mind.
No.
And so even just that little thing shows that actually, like, he does have two brain cells, and he will... And when those two brain cells work together in force over something he's thought about, he's a really sort of caring guy. And I think he even gave her his little toy thing.
Yeah,
because
he did.
He was very protective over that in the first episode.
It was the one thing that he wanted to save.
Yeah, and so if it means that much to him, and he went and put it in her room to make her feel more comfortable, that's... I don't know. I just enjoyed that. That was a good bit of character development of a character which I hadn't previously necessarily liked as much as the others.
Yeah. One thing that I am worried about, not relating to Wrecker necessarily, the fact that it's this whole concept of character growth and development, and the one character that I'm afraid isn't going to go through much or any is Tech. Tech is a character that is worrying to me, because he's a brainy guy, holds back information because he expects everyone else to know it, and stuff like that, and we haven't seen anything deviate from that, and I'm worried that as a personality I can't see where he can grow is the worry.
He's a bit of a computer, and so I think where they might try and push it is potentially he'll be too cold, he'll be too factor this, and there'll be an episode where it's, I don't know, maybe him and Hunter, who works far more instinctually and off the cuff of things, and so maybe he'll learn to be a bit more instinctual, and instead of just going, I guess, by the book, by what his facts are telling him, and actually just, I don't know, do a leap of faith of some sorts and actually go, yeah, screw it, I'm gonna I'm not gonna think about it first. I'm going to do it and then think afterwards.
Yeah. It's definitely something I feel like they need to address it in some capacity. Because while I can understand how maybe they don't want to do full character development for everyone, I feel not yet. I feel like everyone needs a little bit. They just need just an inkling to show in the right direction, because otherwise we are just stuck with this stereotype. And Tech is probably the worst out of all of them. Echo already has a lot of development. You can see he's adjusting to his new role and he's calling on his past and stuff like that. Hunter obviously is going to have massive amounts. We've seen a little bit with Wrecker. Crosshairs is going to have a big amount with everything that's going on with him. And now we're just left with Tech. It's a bit of an odd space.
And I do feel like he's a bit of almost a character purely there for exposition. I do find a lot of the time, for instance, they arrived on this planet and there he was spitting out facts about the wildlife, this, that, and the other, and he just sort of narrates the expositional stuff that people might not know. But that's because it's part of his trait to do that.
And it's almost it's something I meant to bring up in a previous in the previous episode. But he's almost a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, in the sense that when they were dealing with the codes, I forget their exact names.
The chain codes.
The chain codes, yes. He was a line, can you forge one of these? And he says, oh, well, I've only been introduced to I've only learned of their existence minutes ago, but yes. And it's like, okay, I understand the convenience of that, but I want to see him work more for what he does. I think everyone else has a little bit of that, in the fact that they have to struggle and they have that. He's just he's convenient information, he's convenient exposition, he's convenient technologically. He's the answers guy.
That could be, though, a very good point for development. Maybe they come across something. Now you've said that, maybe they come across something he doesn't know, and they're all looking to him to know, and he has almost like a identity crisis, because actually for the first time he's unable to help everyone with this information, because he's just clueless. I think it
would have to be something as extreme as a crisis.
Yeah, because everyone's looking to him.
Because there's every chance that they comes across something that he has no idea about and he doesn't know how to interpret. But if they have that moment and then they move on to just the next episode, and then he does those things again, then he just had a momentary blip and there's no error. There has to be a moment where he actually panic, where he's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think almost like with Ahsoka, where her arrogance killed off a load of clones, potentially him not knowing could have quite fatal consequences for other people who they're trying to protect or care about. And then that is a point of him learning that he can't always be the guy with all the answers, and sometimes he won't know, and that's... I feel like that there is room for character development there. It's just whether they choose to take that or not.
Exactly.
Which I hope they will, because and then I guess the other thing, which I think the main thing that happened with the Bad Batch, was Omega going off and doing her own little thing,
which was interesting. I like. So I had a like and a gripe about this. I like that they went down the avenue of Omega not having to resort to violence, not having to be instinctually a soldier to solve the problems, and thinking about it, and that was a very good plot point. The thing that slightly irritated me was Hunter being bested by a single beast and being overpowered quite quickly.
Yeah.
I understand it was the fact that the mask fell off and he was stuck in that environment, non-breathable environment, but with the status and reputation that the Bad Batch have, you'd like to think I'd at least liked him to introduce a second creature and have him be overpowered that way, or not just have the single one catch him off guard and that be it and over and done with.
Part of me, though, would, I don't know, maybe this is the optimist in me in terms of the episode, would like to see that as yes, okay, it might have been a bit convenient, his mask got knocked off and that put him out of action, but then almost potentially Omega's softening him up a little bit in a way that maybe he was too focused on her safety. And yes, okay, you might think that means he's going to fight harder. It also might mean that his attention is split.
Yeah.
And he can no longer just fight and trust that Omega can deal with it herself. He's now being eyes for him and eyes for her. And so that... Maybe that's just me trying to make that one make sense. Maybe it's not.
That's a nice avenue to take it.
I think if that is something that I can see them doing that and picking that up in future. So that could be the first inklings of something there, maybe.
And also to ever so slightly, I mean, obviously it's a complete farce, but well, not farce, it's an extreme jump theory. But going along the idea that she is an amalgamation of all four, and she's starting to learn how to track things, even though tracking in this universe is just shown by picking up some dirt, rubbing it through your fingers, and then looking off in a direction.
Exactly. It's funny you should say that, because as much of a jump this is as well, this also still, to a degree, follows up with the Force-sensitive theory, because she was very in tune with the Beast, and unlike the others who may have just started blindly firing away and whacking it to pieces, she was able to actually, to a degree, reason and come to an understanding of actually it just didn't like the torch and didn't like the harassment, and it wasn't necessarily violent from the get-go, and that was what was able, once you realised that actually he was part after the torch and part didn't like the light, that actually, oh, okay, you can have my torch then. And that sort of level of the extra layer of interpersonal understanding of like going into the slightly more empathic route that potentially a Force-sensitive person might have.
Potentially.
Or she could just be far more empathic than the Bad Batch. Either way, it shows that almost the unique side there as well as the amalgamation side.
Yeah.
Like,
and then the last thing, the only clone of Bad Batch that we haven't addressed directly as much as Echo, and just it's very off comment because he didn't have a big role to play in this episode.
No, this was very Hunter and Omega, really.
Yeah, but it's when he's outside installing the battery with Tech, and then he hears one of the beasts off, and so he goes torch in one hand, and then he just has his other.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just one of those moments where I think, he's really severely handicapped.
Yeah.
And like part of me wanted it just made me think that I want the initial design for him to have a bit more than just the single tool that he has in the asteroid mech.
Well, yeah. I'm hoping that maybe, I don't know, Tech might be able to fashion in future more attachments for his arm. Maybe,
that would be glorious.
Maybe they get a better understanding of how it works, and so then he can have a torch as his arm, and then a gun in the other side.
Exactly.
Or equally just... Because once he had that torch, and he just had his attachment in the other side...
He would have to drop the torch or go into melee... And if he dropped the torch, he would then be shooting blind because he couldn't see.
I'm also surprised he doesn't have some sort of, like, I guess, thing clipped to the thing on the back of his head as a head torch, potentially. There's so many routes they could go, which I feel like, again, would give Tech a bit more... Because Tech and Echo are definitely underused compared to the others, aside from Tech's expositional uses. So, like, I feel like that could be a good point for them to bond and... that side of things.
Yeah, because at this, Echo's a little bit more than just a lobot, which is.
Oh yeah.
But I think, if anything, it could be an arc that he goes through in that he comes to accept his mechanical side a bit more and decides to just lean into it and go a bit more on the lines of a cyborg.
Yeah, go slightly more cyborgy.
And then kit himself out more. That would be something I'd be really interested in exploring. Exactly.
That would be so cool.
That would just be cool.
Yeah, I hope they go that way, because otherwise I do see him slowly becoming more and more useless.
Yeah.
As much as I hate to say it. But, yeah. But that was the Bad Batch themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Crosshair and the whole Imperial side of things.
I'm definitely getting the feeling that whenever any sort of Crosshair arc or part of the show shows up, it's going to be a good episode.
Yes.
Because, my God, is it interesting.
Crosshair as a character is quite interesting as well. Like, let's just go to the thing that most people are talking about: the whole fucking killing the guy off quite ruthlessly and taking that good soldiers follow orders to the extreme. I just thought it was great to see that sort of, they've boosted his chip, and so everything else with that has been boosted, including things such as, oh, if you're not going to follow the orders, you're not here, you're like borderline deserter, just go.
Yeah.
You don't deserve to be here.
His tactics are absolutely ruthless, cutthroat killer, and it is so interesting to watch people go through the moral implications of everything that they're going through. I mean, we saw it with the, not civilian, but one of the new enlistees.
Yes.
And how he was being blatantly racist. He was just saying, your clones, your times are up, you're inferior, we've got better training and stuff than you, blah blah blah. It was kind of obvious. Well, actually, it wasn't that obvious that he had it coming, I would say.
I thought either something was going to come, or vice versa, he would betray and overthrow. It was one of those things where he was going to be the center of a point. It's just which way that point would have gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, it didn't surprise me that he killed him.
No.
But at the same time, it kind of did, because there was a part of me in my head which was like, okay, is he willing to cross that line of...
And he didn't even hesitate.
He didn't even think about it. He just went.
And once you saw that happen, it's you know that a line has been crossed.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see where they go with it, because they handle it in a very... They handle it in a PG way. Clone Wars, at the end of the day, and Bad Batch is a children's series, but they don't shy away from showing horrific war crimes.
No, I follow a series of just war crimes of the Republic, and the amount of disgraceful stuff, and the war crimes equally of CIS as well. And it's just that they do some horrific stuff to each other, and they don't shy away from it at all.
There's one thing that was on my mind, because there's this idea of Crosshairs, training a bunch of enlistees to be somewhat on par with him or something like that. And I just get the feeling it's not going to go well, or they're going to make a joke out of it at some point, because these are going to be eventual stormtroopers. And the idea of stormtroopers, renowned for their shit aim, being trained by a Deadeye, there's such a poetic irony to it.
I also quite like the whole thought process they're going through. I don't know whether it was spoken about within the episode or whether I imagined it or not, but potentially having stormtrooper units headed by a clone.
Yes, that was...
So the clones still have a use, but they're far more set back. Instead of having legions of clones, it's more... the clones are taking point to then guide the rest of them using their... Because there's no way that they are ever going to be better than clones, because they are bred and trained from birth to do specifically one thing, and that's be a soldier.
Yeah.
You can't match that. But that being said, doesn't mean that they can't train and at least have something to at least increase the numbers and dilute the numbers down, so you've got a lot of clones and then thousands of other humans mixed in. That's a interesting route.
And also just something that we've referenced in a previous episode and touched on now with the sort of racism towards the clones. There's already tension between enlistees and the clones, which means that what you were talking about previously about a final civil war on Kamino being a very realistic possibility.
It's funny, because I was going to follow up with that, because then all of the sort of, we say the tertiary story, the third storyline of the Kaminoans and
staying in power,
the imperials, and that sort of level of their sort of thing. They were very unhappy, and they're hiding their cards a lot more from the imperials than they may have once done with the Republic. And I do feel like, at least from the sort of final scenes we saw of them having that sort of discussion as they were walking away and discussing with each other, that they might be planning some form of backup army. Which I was talking with a friend of ours earlier in the week, and it's not unlike Dave Filoni to, since Disney came in and uncanon so much good like sort of Legends and extended universe material, to bring that out of it and to actually go, nah, screw you Disney, I'm keeping this, because I don't know, I'm starting to get that feel more and more that is exactly where it's heading. There is going to be, even if it's not necessarily on par with the previous material or not, there will at least be a nod or a reference, or at least inspiration drawn from that material for whatever's coming up next, because that's going to be cool. And then it'll be interesting to see where the Bad Batch lie on that, whether they actually fight alongside the Kaminoans and the clones within that, because at the end of the day, then definitely not on the Imperial side, and I don't think Kamino and those that live there actually have anything against the Bad Batch. They have no allegiance.
No, but the Bad Batch have stuff against the Kaminoans for implementing the inhibitor chips in the first place.
So it'll be interesting to where that might be a sort of an easy alliance, maybe, to try and. Who knows?
Might be a weird battle of the five armies, the Hobbit style.
Exactly.
This third unit, tenuous relationship, but they're gonna join together just to fend them off and see what happens.
Yeah. Another thing that I did think of, potentially, this is all super hypothetical now, but could it be potentially the reason why we don't hear about Kamino as much or at all in the original trilogy and other materials moving onwards? Could they have potentially, while they did test, I believe, the Death Star on, didn't they first test it on Scarif?
Scarif, yes.
Originally, to blow up the whole thing, at least, anyway.
Yeah.
Could they have potentially tested the weapon on a prototype, a far smaller scale on Kamino? Because let's face it, Kamino, as an entire planet, at least that we know of, is mostly ocean, with these facilities dotted around. So maybe they just tested the small scale version on these facilities and crippled Kamino to the point where it's technologically set back so far that there's no point in referencing it any further because they've been crippled. That would be...
And it's not like any other star systems would know about it, because as we saw in Attack of the Clones, it's not on any galactic-wide maps.
Exactly. So it would make 100% if they sort of, even if they didn't kill them all off, they just crippled them so bad they couldn't ever leave the planet again, or at least for a very long time. That could that'd be interesting.
There's a lot of ways this series could end.
Yes,
and we are anticipating all of them, and none of them are going to happen.
I don't care, because I like the way it's going at the moment.
Yeah.
I like the way that the Bad Batch is going. I like Omega. I like the whole sharpshooter crosshair storyline. I like the third sort of background storyline of the Kaminoans and the Imperials. So wherever it's going good places.
Oh yes.
And we'll be there for it all.
And you'll be there for us too, along the ride.
Yes.
Words.
Come join us. But I don't know about you, I think that's all I've really got to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered that. We've basically touched on every single point.
Yep. Oh, that was slick. Okay,
Nice.
Well, if you like the discussion and you have something you would like to say, please put it in the comments. We will respond to every single one of you. We'd love to take this discussion further. And aside from that, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And we'll be with you in the next video. Goodbye.
So long.